why not just stop at pyruvate? Let's say you've got some tissue that's going somewhat anaerobic. Oxygen levels are dropping. You can't pump blood fast enough to keep the oxygen levels up in that tissue. And this happens, say, in an active muscle cell all the time. Why don't we just stop here, let this accumulate until oxygen becomes plentiful again, and then run it in here. Instead, we will do this. Other organisms would do ethanol production. But why? Why not just store this up? The answer has to do with this right here. Fermentation doesn't serve any function in terms of direct ATP production. What it does do is serve as a way of dispensing with electrons. Remember, in glycolysis, there's this one step where we oxidize glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. It's oxidized to the level of carboxylic acid. The electrons are dumped on the NAD to make NADH. There's only so much of this stuff in the cell, a few millimolar. Let's say you're a muscle cell and you're running a lot of product through glycolysis. This is a very active enzymatic step. You're converting a lot of NAD to NADH. We'll see in the next lecture that this will go to mitochondria and essentially donate those electrons to oxygen here. But if there is no oxygen, there's no recycling here. Those electrons stay on that. You may have a few millimolar, let's say 4 millimolar of NAD plus NADH. The total NAD pool is 4 millimolar. It might just take you a few seconds before all of it's in this form. You don't have any of this left. Glycolysis stops because you need it to run this reaction. So just back up to that step. You need NAD to be present to run this step. And if all of that gets converted to this, there's none of this left. You can have all the glucose you want available. You can run all these reactions down to here, but it's going to be plugged up right at that step because there's no place to dump these electrons to recycle it back to NAD in the absence of air or in the absence of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen, no problem. We'll see that that goes to oxygen later. But in the absence of oxygen, the low levels of NAD brings glycolysis to a stop. And that means energy production comes to a halt. So if this is an active muscle cell we're talking about, you have to do fermentation just to keep glycolysis moving along.